Exposed, the sinister secrets behind the haunted death of France's most powerful monarch. The chilling whispers echoed through the darkened halls of Maplewood, a suburban paradise hiding nightmarish secrets. Claire shivered as her mind flashed back to the newspaper she had found stuffed behind old family photos. Exposed, the sinister secrets behind the haunted death of France's most powerful monarch. It felt like a curse, an omen. Her heart raced, pounding against her chest as she gripped the edges of the table, feeling the weight of the world crashing down on her. As she navigated through her late husband's belongings, each flicker of the old bulb sent jolts of fear crawling up her spine. What had he discovered? The answer danced just beyond her reach, taunting her like the ghostly specter said to haunt her neighborhood. Shadows flitted in the corners of her vision, and her sensible upbringing screamed at her that there was nothing there. But the whispers, those faint, chilling whispers that seemed to seep from the walls at night, they felt all too real. Night after night, Claire's reality spiraled into a pit of dread. Insomnia plagued her as she crammed together school projects at the dining table while her thoughts drifted to the hidden troubles beneath her cheerful suburb. Neighbors who once exchanged handshakes now watched her with an intensity that felt invasive, unsettling. The smell of fear hung in the air like a thick fog. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each day, her laughter disguised her growing fear. She made pancakes for breakfast, settling her kids into a world of childhood innocence while darkness simmered just beneath her smile. But the financial strain loomed, a heavy yoke around her neck, eager to drag her under. Rumors twirled around the local supermarket like bats in the night. Words of ancestral sins, cursed bloodlines, and whispers of a long-dead French monarch blazed through her ears like wildfire. Something dark lurked pulsing steadily beneath the surface. Toys began to scatter by themselves, innocent chattering dwindled into eerie silence, and cold drafts haunted the hallways. Claire would often find her children staring into space, entranced by unseen forces, as if beckoned by something sinister. The echoes of her husband's frantic writings blurred with her reality. The journal she had found in the attic rattled like bones in the cold, dim light, revealing secrets even she had feared to uncover. The final straw came as she tucked her children into bed after reading them a story. The journal felt alive in her grasp, filled with twisted revelations that tied their lives to a European heritage marred by death. The last entry hinted at a figure walking among them, her neighbor, cloaked in a friendly facade but housing a darkness that threatened to engulf everything she held dear. As she turned to face the door, anticipation thrummed through the air like a live wire, confirming her heart's darkest suspicion. She had opened a terrifying door, one that could swallow them whole. But that figure on the other side? What depth of evil had she unwittingly invited into her life? How deep did the roots of this terrible legacy run? Claire's breath hitched as she stood motionless, the weight of her decision wrenching at her gut. Every muscle urged her to flee, yet curiosity twisted around her like vines, tightening with every passing second. The coach lights outside flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls, hinting at a presence lurking just outside. "Mom." A soft voice broke through the thick tension. Claire turned to see her youngest, Mia, rubbing sleep from her eyes, blissfully unaware of the encroaching darkness. "Can I sleep with you?" "Of course, honey," Claire managed to reply, forcing a smile. But the grin felt like a mask slipping, revealing her dread beneath. She tucked Mia into bed, her thoughts swirling with fear and desperation. Should she reveal the truth to her children? Would that only burden them with horrors they were too young to understand? As the night wore on, rest evaded her. The whispers grew louder from the shadows within the house, as if the very walls were alive, yipping secrets that clawed at her sanity. She strained to listen, but the words slithered just out of reach, taunting her. Rising from the confines of her own mind, she grabbed the journal, flicking through the pages like desperately trying to select the right door in a maze. The clock ticked ominously, punctuating her thoughts. Each tick echoed ominously, ticking down to an uncertainty she couldn't ignore. With a resolve fueled by anxiety, Claire slipped on her shoes, determined to confront the secrets haunting her. The basement beckoned. She clutched the journal tightly, her flashlight illuminating the dank stairwell, casting long shadows that reached out like fingers. Each step deeper layered on the dreadful weight that threatened to bury her alive. At the bottom, she paused before the heavy wooden door, rusty hinges creaking like the tortured souls of spirits trapped. "What am I doing?" she whispered into the silence, feeling foolish, but she knew she couldn't turn back now. Pushing the door open, she felt an icy draft escape, wrapping around her like a cold hand gripping her heart. Inside, the air was thick, saturated with the scent of aged wood and something metallic that turned her stomach. The room was cluttered with forgotten relics, old furniture draped in dusty sheets, boxes shedding years of neglect. As she brushed her fingers across surfaces, her breath caught. Ink stains marred old documents, illustrations of a man in royal garb, eyes dark and piercing, as if staring into her very soul. Could this be the monarch her husband was obsessed with? A loud crash echoed suddenly from behind her, stifling her breath. She swung around, heart racing, as a figure emerged from the shadows. Claire's pulse thundered in her ears. There, mere feet away, stood her neighbor, the one mentioned in the journal. The familiar smile twisted into a grimace that sent chills down Claire's spine. "Looking for something, Claire?" The words dripped with a feigned cordiality that felt venomous. "Stay back!" Claire shouted, taking a step back, but the darkness encroached around her, the walls feeling as if they were closing in. "Your family has something that belongs to me and the debts must be paid." The room spun as she realized the decrepit truth. What had she unleashed? Her children were still upstairs, oblivious to the threat this neighbor posed. She had to protect them, but how could she when she didn't even understand this twisted game? As Claire's resolve strengthened, she locked eyes with her neighbor, determination hardening within her. She would fight for her family, even if it meant confronting the horrors of their past. "Leave us alone," she spat, gripping the journal tightly as if it were a weapon, but the neighbor only smiled, darkness lurking just beneath the surface, ready to envelop everything she held dear. And then, she heard it again, a whisper, clearer now, echoing through the depths of the basement, revealing a truth too terrible to face what awaited her next. Fear seized Claire as she stood with the journal, the air thick with an unnameable tension. The shadow of her neighbor loomed in the doorway like a dark omen, sealing off her escape. Every instinct screamed to flee, but she held her ground. Her heart hammered erratically, an animal trapped in a cage, desperate for freedom. "Look around you, Claire," the man said, his smile growing wider, revealing teeth that seemed sharper than they should be. "This place, it's suffused with such history. Your husband understood it, didn't he? The power in those pages. The secrets. This isn't just any man's story. What do you want?" she demanded, gripping the journal as if it were a shield. He stepped closer, the darkness shifting around him like a living thing. "What I want is simple. You have a connection to something very valuable. The debts you owe are ancient. Your family's history is entwined with this legacy." Claire's thoughts raced. The whispers in her house was at the house itself pleading for her to discover the truth. Her love for her children flared in her chest, giving her the courage she desperately needed. "I don't owe you anything." The neighbor laughed, low and chilling, as if amused by her defiance. "You underestimate the weight of bloodlines, Claire. The ancient contracts your ancestors entered, they don't dissolve with time. They bind your fate to this place, to me." An icy wave washed over her, thoughts darting to Mia and her son, Lucas. "Stay away from my family." It felt weak as soon as she spoke, the realization hitting that he could reach them at any moment. "Your little ones," he mused, tilting his head. "They are innocent, yes, but innocence has never protected anyone from the past. I can ensure they stay safe, if only you cooperate." With every word, dread crept in, crawling through her veins, incremental like a spider weaving its web. The shadows stirred again, gathering strength in the corners of the room, whispering incomprehensible words that dripped into her consciousness like poison. The journal, its pages now stained with desperation, began to thrum with an energy that felt alive, vibrating against her fingertips. "Let me explain something to you, Claire," the neighbor continued, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You don't just uncover secrets, sometimes, those secrets uncover you. And it doesn't end well." Suddenly, an electric shock coursed through her body as the whispers peaked into a cacophony, drowning out reason. The walls pressed in, as if urging her to collapse into the ground beneath them. "Your husband opened a door, a gateway. He should have known better," he scolded, his tone turning harsh. "And now you have to finish what he started. Embrace it, and I will show you how to protect your precious children." "No!" Claire shouted, fury igniting in her gut. "You won't touch them. This is a game for you, but this is my family." "Is it, though?" he asked, stepping closer. "Or is it just a pawn on this board? Wouldn't it be easier just to let them go, if you're still clinging to that desperate mother instinct?" And then she saw a glimmer of twisted hope in his eyes. In that moment, bits and pieces of her relationship with her husband flooded her mind. The little things he'd left unsaid, his constant research into their family history, the hints of a darkness lurking in his past. "Claire," he said, his voice dripping with oily malice, "what if the truth is far worse than your happy life ever was?" The room felt charged, teetering on the brink of revelation and disaster. The shadows drew closer, the darkness shifting, waiting. Claire knew she had to act before her family became irrevocably entwined with this nightmare. "Never!" she screamed, but her voice cracked. Would she find a way to save them, or would she have to dive deeper into darkness? What answers awaited her, and what shadows still lingered, waiting to be unleashed? Panic twisted in Claire's gut as she faced the neighbor, her heart racing with every breath. The words he said seeped into her thoughts, condensing into a black fog that clung to her. What secrets? The question felt like a ghastly echo in her mind, teasing the edges of her sanity. The man watched her closely, his smirk unwavering under the dim light of the room. "You felt it," he whispered, leaning forward, his voice thick with malevolence. "The whispers calling out from those pages. They've marked you." Claire shook her head, trying to dispel the fear gnawing at her. "This isn't real. You're just trying to manipulate me." Yet doubt clawed at her resolve. How much did she really know about her husband's life? The secrecy woven into their past felt like a dark mantle she could no longer ignore. "Isn't it?" he replied, his eyes shimmering with something feral. "Your husband dug too deep. He awoke something that should have remained asleep. And now, it's too late for denial." She felt the weight of the journal in her hands. The leather binding was warm, pulsating, as if it had its own heartbeat. The inked words danced in her vision. The stories of her ancestors, woven with dark threads of foreboding. She could almost hear them, faint murmurs vibrating beneath the surface. "Help us, find us." Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. The shadows in the corners swelled, moving closer, as if they could sense her fear. Dark, claw-like fingers reached towards her, inspecting, probing. Claire's throat tightened, her breath quickened as a chill washed over her. "Your children," he crooned, delighting in her panic. "What happens when they start to hear the whispers, too?" "No." The word burst from her lips with desperate ferocity, a raw plea for control. But even as she spoke, she felt a creeping realization slide under her skin. What if Mia and Lucas could hear them? What if they were already in danger? The thought alone sent a shiver through her spine, freezing her blood. "Ah, but you see," he mused, "they are drawn to it, just like you. Embrace what is destined for you, and you can mold that darkness into a shield." His tone turned conspiratorial again, "Or resistance might just unearth horrors that will come for them, and you won't be able to protect them." They'll be drawn into the chaos. Her breath caught. You're lying. But the crack in her voice betrayed her wavering sanity. Images of her children flashed in her mind, their laughing faces, their innocent smiles. Would she do anything to protect them, even accept this man's insanity? Choose, Claire, he pressed, stepping ever closer, the shadows flickering just behind him like a veil. Join me, and I'll teach you how to wield the power that flows through your veins. Or refuse, and force your family into the looming abyss. Claire's mind raced. The vein of dark power calling her name felt so seductive, yet terrifying. Could she harness it? Would she sacrifice everything for the chance to save her kids? As despair tangled with determination, the journal in her grasp jerked violently. The room vibrated, the very air becoming oppressive. She could almost hear the pages whispering, beckoning her forward. An irresistible pull. You are the key, Claire. Finish what has begun. He hissed urgently, the shadows now coalescing around him, shifting like a living wave. Then it happened. A sudden crash. The front door flung open, splintering against the wall. Claire turned, heart pounding, dread clutching at her throat, as a figure appeared silhouetted in the doorway. M.O.M. It was Lucas. Stumbling over the threshold, panic in his wide eyes. No. She stepped toward him, instinct kicking in, but before she could speak, the dark shadows lunged forward as if awakened, hungry for more than just fear. A scream erupted from her throat, raw and primal, as everything started to unravel. What would she do now with the walls of darkness closing in, and her son caught in the web of her choices? Would she risk everything to save them or give in to the encroaching chaos? The room spun, her mind racing, as she felt the true weight of the past crashing down. And just like that, a choice loomed before her with evil lurking on every side. Time froze as Claire's eyes darted between Lucas and the menacing figure of the neighbor, who loomed with an aura of foreboding. The shadows writhed and twisted around him, reaching toward her son like hungry tendrils. Her instincts screamed at her to protect him. She surged forward, but the neighbor's mocking laughter echoed through the air, a cruel reminder of the terror surging within her. Stop! She shouted, desperation flooding her voice. Get away from him. But the air thickened, pressing down on her. Lucas stood frozen, his small frame engulfed in confusion and fear. The shadows pulsated with life, hungry eyes glistening just beyond her line of sight. Mom, what is happening? Lucas cried out, his voice trembling, chasing away the echoes of the neighbor's wicked words. In that moment, the darkness expanded, swallowing the room in pulse after chilling pulse. Claire's hands trembled as she held the journal tightly, as if it could anchor her to reality, yet it felt like a fuse about to ignite. Listen to him, Claire, the neighbor hissed, his whisper weaving through her mind like poison. Turn the darkness into your ally. You cannot fight what runs in your veins. The pages of the journal fluttered, their whispers intensifying, brushing against her thoughts. Memories surged to the surface, images of family gatherings long forgotten, shadows creeping in the corners of the photographs. She could almost hear the chilling stories of curses and betrayals, her ancestors' dark secrets beckoning her to join their ranks. That in an instant, fear collided with anger, a fierce need to protect Lucas sparking within. Leave him alone. She screamed, defiance threading through her panicked breath. Before she could react, the shadows darted toward Lucas with a speed that made her heart drop. An icy chill clawed at her throat, freezing her in place. But just as the darkness engulfed her son, Claire felt an inexplicable surge from the journal. Its heat radiated through her, and she lifted it as if it were a weapon forged from her own agony. No! She roared, stepping forward, a fierce force igniting her resolve. The shadows flickered, their movement hesitating as though sensing her defiance. She focused, pouring every ounce of her fear into an energy that surged from her fingers. I will not allow you to take him. Light erupted from the journal, blinding and brilliant, pushing against the shadows. The room exploded in chaos, a cacophony of screams and whispers battling for dominance. Lucas staggered back, freedom restored in that moment as the oppressive darkness wailed and retreated. "Mom! What did you do?" Lucas gasped, trembling as he eyed the swirling shadows now shrinking, cowering in the corners of the room. Claire's heart raced, but as the light dimmed, fury and uncertainty clouded her mind. What had she unleashed within herself? Questions seethed in her thoughts, but the immediate threat had receded, drawing the neighbor's sinister laughter into a hush. "Just a taste of what lurks beneath," he murmured, his expression darkening. "You've only begun to scratch the surface, Claire. They are calling for you." With a sudden smash, the now closed window shattered, scattering glass like deadly confetti. Wind howled into the room, and Claire felt the chill creeping back into her bones. Each gust wrapped around her. The whispers returned, louder this time, more insistent than before, clawing at the edges of her mind. "Mom!" Lucas screamed again, his eyes wide with terror, as a shape moved in the darkness beyond the window, just out of sight. Claire's heart thundered, the room enveloped in a sinister breath of confusion. She grasped the journal tighter, feeling the pulse quicken with each whisper it emitted. What was it pointing her toward? What darkness was she truly meant to confront? Then, in the midst of the chaos, the door creaked open slowly, hinges squealing like a dying animal. A sense of dread washed over her. The air had shifted again. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, shrouded in darkness. And Claire's breath hitched in her throat as she recognized the familiar outline. "Dad?" Her voice trembled, a mix of hope and dread, as the shadows coiled around him, pulling forth a sickening sense of realization. Was her father part of this twisted reality? How deep did this nightmare run? As the shadows writhed, a chilling truth settled in Claire's mind: she had opened a door she could never truly close. What lay beyond the threshold? The answer loomed above her like an executioner's blade, waiting to fall. Claire's breath came in ragged gasps, caught between disbelief and a rising tide of dread. Her father stepped into the dim light, shadows clinging to him like a second skin. She could feel Lucas shivering beside her, his small hand gripping her leg tightly, an anchor in the storm of terror swirling around them. "Dad?" she repeated, voice barely above a whisper, each syllable a plea for sanity in this nightmare. The figure advanced slowly, his face obscured by darkness, but she felt the weight of his gaze bore down on her, the intensity suffocating. "Claire." His voice, once familiar and comforting, echoed with a dissonance that sent chills racing down her spine. "You've awakened something that was meant to remain asleep." "What do you mean?" Her voice cracked, desperation pooling in her words. She wanted to reach out, to wrap her arms around him, but dread held her back. Are you part of this?" He chuckled, a hollow sound that seemed to dance with the shadows. "Part of it? Child, this blood runs deep. The secrets you unwittingly uncovered are ancestral. We are bound to this darkness." Lucas whimpered, fear radiating from him like a flickering candle in a storm. "Mom, I don't like this." His innocent voice pulled Claire back to the present, the horror blending with her motherly instinct. "Get away from him," she demanded, stepping between Lucas and her father. The journal throbbed violently in her grip, reverberating with the echoes of long-buried truths. "Whatever this is, I won't let it take him." Such bravery, her father mocked, his face twisting into a ghastly grin as shadows tightened around him. "But courage cannot shield you from the truth. The darkness is not just outside, it is within you, Claire." With a sudden lunge, he reached out, fingers brushed with shadows extending toward Claire. Panic swelled in her chest, she grasped the journal, channeling her fear into words. "Leave. We're not like you." The shadows recoiled momentarily, as if her defiance dug into their very essence. But they were resilient. As Claire felt the darkness reacting, the air warped around her, growing colder, suffocating. Whispers clouded her mind, memories of stories told in hushed tones around flickering candles, tales of her family's tainted history. A fearsome legacy. "Mom. Please. Lucas urged, his trembling voice cracking through the haze. Swallowing her terror, Claire thrust the journal forward, unleashing a beam of light that tore through the darkness. The shadows shrieked, their weight tipping into chaos as they recoiled from the luminous force. But through the discord, she caught a glimpse of something moving behind her father. A darker shape lurked, just beyond the veil, gliding on tendrils of shadow. "Don't look!" she screamed, instinctively shielding Lucas with her body. Yet, it was too late. He spun around, eyes wide, catching a flash of dread that she couldn't see. "What is that?" Lucas gasped, his voice trembling, disrupting their fragile moment of resistance. From the depths of shadows, a more substantial shape emerged, a figure cloaked in terror, its features lost amid an aura of despair, its eyes burning like coal. "Your choices will have consequences," it hissed, voice a chilling echo of their own. Claire's heart dropped as she faltered, the journal slipping from her hand. "No." She lunged forward, trying to reclaim her grip on reality, but the shadow creature advanced, unraveled darkness spilling around it. The room pulsed with a life of its own, walls vibrating with despair. The very foundation felt unsteady. "You can't escape it." Her father yelled, laughter spilling over his lips like poison. In that moment of chaos, realization settled in her chest like a lead weight. It wasn't just her father. It wasn't merely her legacy. Something sinister was awakening, and Claire could feel its malignant intentions latching onto her. As if sensing her thoughts, the creature turned its hollow gaze toward her, and the shadows clenched tight around her father. "Join us or lose everything." With a thrust of her will, she shouted, "I want to let the darkness take over." Unseen forces surged, blinding light erupted again, but the ominous figure remained, drawing closer, the promise of despair hanging heavy in the air. "Choose wisely, Claire. The darkness is patient," it whispered, fading into whispers, leaving only the menace behind. The door to a fate she could no longer ignore swung wide open. What lay on the other side? Was it a fight for survival, or the end of everything she loved? The light enveloped them, a fragile barrier against the tide of darkness closing in like a tightening noose. Claire's heart raced, each beat pounding like a war drum in her ears. She could feel Lucas trembling against her side, the sheer terror emanating from him almost tangible. "Mom!" His voice was a shrill whisper, nearly lost amid a chorus of wails rising from the shadows. "What do we do?" She wanted to answer. Wanted to promise him everything would be okay. But the weight of her father's smile hung over her like a cloud. "Together, we'll find a way," she spit out, rallying her feeble courage. The shadows bucked and writhed, almost alive, glistening tendrils reaching out to snare them in their grip. Claire could feel their cold caress on her skin, a creeping essence that threatened to drag her into an abyss of despair. She clenched the journal again, clinging tightly, its rough cover grounding her. Her father's laugh rang out, cruel and mocking, and she glared at him through the shimmering glow. "You think you can fight it?" he taunted, shadows swirling around him like a tempest. "This has been the legacy of our bloodline." "What legacy?" she gasped, her voice rising. "A history of betrayal and despair." Suddenly, the room shifted again, walls expanding then contracting as if it were breathing. The air thickened like syrup, weighing down her thoughts. "Make your choice." The looming figure hissed, its burning eyes scorching her with unspoken torment. Everything inside her screamed to run, but deeper still, the need to protect Lucas anchored her. "We just need to get out of here," she shouted, attempting to pierce the veil of dread among them. "Running will cost you more than you're willing to pay." The shadow being's voice grew louder, drowning out the tremors of her own heart. It extended a crooked finger that beckoned with an insidious promise. "Listen to it, Claire," her father echoed, each word laced with venom. "This isn't just our past, it's you. The darkness is hungry and you are its bloodline." The shadows erupted, a tsunami of dark energy crashing around them. Lucas squeezed her hand tighter, eyes wide, terror frozen on his small face. For a fleeting moment, Claire's heart clenched with the weight of doubt. What if he was right? What if this darkness was truly part of her? No. She shouted at the darkness, her voice rising above the chaos. I refuse to be part of your twisted legacy. The ghostly figure paused, and for a split second, the shadows wavered, retreating just briefly. It was opening a door. A way out, a glimpse of hope. Now's our chance. Claire grabbed Lucas's hand firmly, pulling him toward the shifting light. They began to move, but it felt as though the very air conspired against them, thick with a sense of inevitability. Stay close. Claire urged, pulling Lucas beside her. But the shadows, sensing their escape, surged forward. The figure lunged, darkness spilling from it like liquid dread, curling fingers wrapping tightly around them. Choice. Remember, Claire. It hissed from the dark, almost lovingly. An echo of her father's voice slipped through, resonating with every horrific realization. Suddenly, Claire felt the journal pulsing with a fierce intensity, as if responding to her resolve. She braced herself. I want to let you take him. With one last desperate push, Claire slammed the journal to the floor. Light exploded outward, splintering the shadows into shards of swirling black and white. There was heat, an inferno that licked at her skin, threatening to engulf them whole. As the darkness erupted with a howl of fury, Claire and Lucas were propelled forward. The world around them splintered apart, light tearing at the corners, revealing an ominous blackness stretching ahead. Then, everything dropped into silence. In that stillness, Claire stood on the precipice of a chilling new domain. She peered into the void, breath hitching in fear. Where are we now? She whispered. Before her, tendrils of shadow hung like fog, whispering promises of despair anew. Claire could feel a very different weight pressing down, a new danger. Lurking just beyond what her eyes could see. Are we safe? Lucas murmured, tremors returning to his voice. No answer came, only the echo of their breath against the relentless silence. What had they stumbled into? Stay with me, Lucas, Claire's voice quavered, filled with an urgency she could hardly contain. But deep within, dread gnawed at her reality. What doors had they opened, and what had followed them into this new abyss? The shadows were not gone. They had merely shifted their form, and Claire felt the dark heartbeat of something watching, waiting, ready to reveal its true horror. What awaited them in this realm of despair? Would they emerge victorious, or were they only stepping deeper into the clutches of darkness that had haunted her family for generations? The silence pressed around Claire and Lucas like a thick blanket, stifling any thought of escape. Shadows danced at the edge of vision, swirling with menacing grace, while the dim light fought to keep them in its fragile embrace. Mom, it feels wrong here, Lucas whispered, his voice quaking with fear. Claire glanced down at him, her heart twisted into knots. She wanted to soothe him, to deny his feelings, but a part of her resonated with the truth behind his words. The air felt charged, alive with whispers too soft to decipher, but heavy with intent. Just, hold on tight, she murmured, squeezing his hand. She scanned the endless void, trying to pierce the dark with her gaze, searching for clarity or a sign of safety. Yet all she found was an oppressive mist curling around their feet, curling and nibbling as if it were alive. The thin light pulsed, flickering in and out like a dying star. Their fragile barrier threatened to collapse, and Claire felt the darkness pressing closer, tightening around them. Footsteps echoed dull thuds that reverberated, as if a multitude was stalking their every move. Claire Lucas shivered, pulling closer to her. Stay by me, she commanded, steeling herself against the encroaching terror. But deep inside, panic churned. What if her resolve couldn't hold? The mist began to coalesce, swelling into shapes, grotesque and ghastly. They shifted and morphed as the shadows whispered, teasing memories of lost time and forgotten horrors. Claire saw flickers of familiar faces, all wreathed in agony, their mouths open in silent screams. Were they the lost souls of her family? Trapped because of her? No. She shouted, shaking her head, forcing the images away. Not again. But the echoes only grew louder. A cacophony of past regrets and failures surged within the shadows, raking at her heart like claws against flesh. Each step felt like wading through thick molasses, their progress slowed by ropes of fear. "Mom!" Lucas whimpered, his grip tightening. Claire focused on his face, pure and innocent, untouched by this horror. "We're getting out of this. I promise." The words tasted bitter, sour with desperation, but they were all she could offer. As if fueled by her defiance, a loud crack split the air. The light shuddered violently, sending tremors through the ground. The shadows released their ghastly forms, howling in outrage, swirling faster, readying for another assault. "Run!" Claire shouted, urging Lucas forward as she pushed against the tide of shadows threatening to engulf them. She didn't know where she was going, only that going anywhere was better than staying where they were. They darted through the phantom mist, the darkness snapping at their heels. Behind them, the whispers turned into shrieks, bitter winds rattling against the bones of the world. "Never stop, Lucas. We have to keep moving." Her voice pierced through the chaos, a rallying cry in the wilderness of despair. But the shadows closed in again, long fingers grazing their backs, chilling her to the core. She could sense the insatiable hunger, the desire for them to fail, to surrender to the dark legacy that taunted them. Suddenly, a vision surged forth, a glimpse of a doorway flickering into existence. Light spilled from it, bright and beckoning. Hope glimmered there, but was it a trap? The moment hung heavy, and her instincts screamed at her. "Lucas!" she yelled. "To the light!" They barreled towards it, racing against the tide of darkness. Just as they reached the door, a shadow lunged. Its tendrils wrapped around Claire's ankle, yanking her back with alarming force. "No! I want to let you take me!" Claire screamed, twisting violently, trying to free herself. Lucas hesitated, terror painted on his small face. "Mom! Go! Now!" Claire urged, desperation fueling her words. With a heart-wrenching expression, Lucas darted through the door, vanishing into the light. "Lucas!" Claire screamed, panic blurring her vision. And in that instant, the shadows surged forward, ready to claim her with a cacophony of tortured souls. Claire fought against the pull, determined not to become a part of this suffocating nightmare. As the darkness closed in, a deep laugh echoed around her, one that resonated with the night, familiar and cruel. "Welcome to the family legacy, my dear." What awaited Lucas beyond the door? Would he find safety or something far worse? The light engulfed Lucas, blinding him momentarily. He stumbled forward, the warmth wrapping around him like a tender embrace, a stark contrast to the cold dread he had just fled. But as it subsided, his heart sank. He found himself in a room, an abandoned home, dusty and long forgotten. Shadows clung to the corners, and the air felt heavy with silence, as if even the walls were holding their breath. "Mom!" he called out, his voice echoing against the peeling wallpaper. Anxiety twisted his stomach. Where was she? Was she okay? He spun in place, scanning the dim space for any sign of life, but found none. That a faint creak caught his attention. He turned sharply, eyes wide. At first, he thought it was just the house settling, but then he saw it, a figure standing at the end of a long hallway, barely illuminated by the flickering light of a broken lamp. A woman, her dark hair framing a pale, drawn face. Lucas felt drawn to her, but the memory of the shadows pulled at him, warning him. "Help me," she mouthed silently, a gesture so familiar that it lodged a knife of pain in his heart. Her eyes were hollow and desperate. He took a tentative step forward, whispering, Are you my mom?" But before she could answer or even move, the room filled with a ghastly howl, a sound that seemed to weave through the walls, rising and falling like cold wind through barren trees. The walls shimmered, revealing darker shapes slithering just out of sight, clawing at the edges of his perception. Lucas's heart pounded as he hesitated. What if he chased after this ghost of a woman and it was all a trap? He shivered in fear but knew he couldn't stay here alone. "Mom!" he shouted, louder now. "Mom, where are you?" But the silence that followed was deafening. He felt the weight of despair pressing down on him, and in that stillness, something shifted in the shadows. From the corners, long, sinuous forms seeped forward, lurking and creeping toward him. They moved like smoke, bending and twisting, hungry and malevolent. The familiar voice of the figure echoed in his mind, a ghost woven into his very thoughts. "You must choose." Suddenly, his childhood memories flooded back, playing hide and seek under the kitchen table, laughter spilling over cupcakes on his birthday, the warmth of hugs that made everything feel right. But buried beneath that joy was something darker, an unspoken fear. He recalled the day they moved into this cursed town, the whispers about the house, the stories that shouldn't be spoken. "Lucas." The voice pulled him closer to the kitchen door, where the shadows lay thicker. "Find me," he shook his head vehemently. "No." He knew he shouldn't trust it, but the promise of reunion nearly shattered him. Just then, the shadows dispersed momentarily, revealing the doorway to the outside, a portal back to chaos or, perhaps, safety. But before he could decide to flee, the shadows lunged, their formless arms stretching toward his small frame. They were desperately hungry, eager to drag him back into whatever abyss they emerged from. Lucas felt terror current through him, urging him into action. That he sprinted towards the door, heart racing. As he reached the threshold, energy tinged the air, something prickling and electric. The shadows shrieked, furious, clawing at his heels, desperation echoed in their haunted cries. "No! I will not be trapped!" he shouted, almost defiantly, and leaped through the door just as the darkness tried to snatch him back. A blinding flash engulfed him again. When it faded, Lucas hit the ground hard, rolling onto damp grass. He gasped for air, lungs straining against the sudden chill. The sun burned bright against his skin, but everything felt wrong. It shouldn't feel this warm, not with the shadows still looming in his mind. The moment was fragile, filled with an unsettling calm. He lingered, listening for familiar footsteps, a comforting voice, anything to ground him. But all he heard was the mocking laughter of a faraway echo, cruel and teasing. The shadows had not disappeared, they were simply biding their time. "Lucas!" The voice floated to him, far off yet achingly close, a soft whisper, a gentle plea. He turned towards it, feeling a rising hope. Could it really be her? Did she find the way to him? He stood, heart pounding, straining to see through the oppressive haze, wondering if becoming part of this twisted legacy would be his fate after all. What if he couldn't reach her in time? Would he be pulled back into that darkness, alone and afraid forever? Claire's heart twisted as the world around her faded into silence. The shadows momentarily retreated, granting her a breath, but it was a deceptive gift, filled with an eerie stillness. The dark remnants of despair danced at the edges of her vision, whispering promises and threats in equal measure. Lucas's cry echoed in her ears, a reminder of what was at stake. Her bond with him transcended the sheer horror they faced. "Mom!" The urgency in Lucas's voice reached a fever pitch, slicing through the darkness that threaded its way around her heart. The thought of him lost to this nightmare ignited something fierce inside her. "I'm coming!" Claire shouted into the shadows, determination shoving fear aside like an unwanted guest. Gritting her teeth, she tightened her grip on the journal. It was no longer just an artifact, it was her weapon, a glowing beacon in a world obscured by darkness. She felt its pulse resonate against her skin, mimicking her heartbeat, urging her toward an unseen path. "Yes," she declared, as if the universe itself had conspired to align at this moment. "You want to take my children? You want to dive us into despair? Not today." She stepped forward, her eyes blazing with the fury of a mother protecting her child. With every ounce of strength she had, Claire concentrated on the light, allowing it to pour into her spirit. The shadows writhed, a symphony of indignation and might merging into one. The room pulsed, thrumming with energy both ancient and alive. "Your will is weak, Claire. The figure, her father, sneered, the darkness curling lovingly around him. You can't fight what you truly are. He was wrong. She felt an ember of power ignite within her, fierce and unrelenting. Claire couldn't ignore the truth any longer. This darkness was intertwined with her being, but it was also something she could navigate, a path laden with shadows but not devoid of light. My children are not pawns in your game. She roared, channeling that energy into a mighty thrust. Light exploded from the journal, brilliant and unfurling like the wings of a phoenix rising from ash. It blazed through the black mist, disintegrating tendrils of shadow that recoiled as if scalded. Claire pressed forward, heart racing. Enough. The darkness shrieked, voices overlapping in terror, falling back in chaotic retreat. She felt Lucas's presence return to her, tethering them together once more. Let us go. But before they could escape, the shadows flared back, ravenous, snapping around Claire's feet like vipers. You cannot escape your fate. The figure howled. Claire's heart raced as shrill laughter echoed off hidden walls. That in a moment of clarity, Claire seized the journal, lips pressed tight. No more. I reject this legacy. I reject you. The strength of her conviction ignited the air, and for a heartbeat, time slowed. The shadows halted, the piercing light expanded until it splintered the very fabric of reality. It radiated pure warmth, pushing back malevolence and suffocating despair. She felt Lucas come beside her, a mirror of her resolve. Together. Lucas cried that in synchrony, they thrust their hands forward, summoning every flicker of light and love they had ever shared. The darkness screamed, a howling cacophony as Claire and Lucas surged through the wall of shadows. They dove into the blinding radiance, propelling them toward freedom, toward each other. Everything shifted like a storm dispersing to reveal clarity. Sunlight bathed them, enveloping them in warmth as they collapsed onto cool grass, gasping for air. The shadows shrieked behind them, disintegrating into the vast nothingness, leaving only echoes of their sinister promise. A sense of weightlessness enveloped Claire. They were free, at least for now. Mom! Lucas flung himself into her arms, their connection restoring breaths of confidence. She held him tightly, tears of relief spilling down her cheeks, the bright warmth of survival blooming in her chest. We did it, Lucas. We broke free. Where are we? He asked, gazing wide-eyed at their surroundings. The world around them sparkled in sharp contrast to the darkness they left behind. It was a sunny park. Children played, laughter trilling in the air, vivid blooms of flowers decorating every inch. It felt surreal, a new beginning juxtaposed against their recent horrors. But Claire knew better than to dismiss it as a mere illusion. Let us go home, she whispered, holding Lucas's hand in a firm grasp. Together. We'll face anything as long as we're together. With renewed determination, Claire turned towards the path leading out of the park, encouraging Lucas to follow. She wouldn't allow the darkness to reclaim her family. The shadows may have revealed deep-rooted fears, but they had also unveiled boundless strength and love. And that, she realized, was the real legacy worth fighting for. While darkness may linger at the edges, Claire vowed to stand vigilant and protect the light. They would navigate through whatever lay ahead and wholeheartedly embrace the resilience that came from their bond. Never again would the shadows dictate their fate, and in that bright moment, surrounded by the warmth of sunlight and love, they walked forward, ready to embrace the future. Let the whispers remain behind, Claire thought, as she and Lucas stepped confidently into the embrace of tomorrow. And before you leave, you need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. We want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support makes a real difference.